Sun Seekers, welcome back to Someplace Sunny. If you're new here, this is the channel that we talk about all things mental health, healing journeys, and finding your light and your someplace sunny, even in your darkest places. Today we are going to dive into a subject that's a little bit intriguing and a little bit different than we usually talk about, and that is, can true crime affect your mental health? It's a question I've been curious about for a long time. So if any of you are curious about this, please hit the subscribe button so we can all travel this journey of healing together.
In the sun, it's already begun. You are my one. With a simple mind, we should find some more time. We don't need to worry at all.
Okay, so let's talk about why we're even drawn to true crime in the first place. There's no denying that true crime has become, the content is, whether it's documentaries, whether it's podcasts, or even books, it's become very, very popular, right? It's on all channels. There's so many of them. But why is that? For many, it is solving the mystery, okay? Me, guys, I love to solve the mystery. I like to watch the shows where they don't tell you who the killer was or who the abductor was or whatever it may be. I sit and poke my husband at night and I'm like, Tim, I don't think it's the husband, I think it's the son. So for a lot of people, it is the mystery. It's the fascination with human psyche, which I love as well. I've always had a drawing towards, it's kind of odd that I have mental health challenges because I've always been one. I have a minor in psych. And I was always one who was drawn towards that. I love serial killers and the whole thing. I mean, I love it so much, guys. Look at my wall behind me. We have a kind of a game room in our attic, and there's different walls like this. And I did the one with all the killers, and so cool. But it may be even a sense of justice being served. Sometimes whenever the asshole gets caught, I'm like, yes. Right? So, but there is a fine line between entertainment and obsession, and that's where things get kind of tricky. Okay, now let's get to the heart of the matter. How does all this true crime content that we're seeing everywhere, how does it affect mental health? For some people, diving into these stories leads to increased anxiety. It has happened with me in the past, especially if you're prone to it. The constant exposure to violence, danger, and trauma can make the world feel like a scary place. And it could heighten our fears. And there's a phenomenon called mean world syndrome. And it's where people start to believe that the world is actually much scarier than it actually is. And I tend to have that. Sometimes I've had to put the brakes on. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, whenever I was really, really dealing with bad anxiety, whenever my son had first went to college, my psychologist actually told me that I couldn't watch it anymore. And I had to take a break for probably about a year because I was falling asleep to it. And in the wintertime, which we all know that I hate winter, I tend to watch more. I'm not a TV watcher, except for true crime, but I tend to watch more TV, and I was watching it in the daytime as well. And it was just heightening all of these thoughts and anxieties and fears that I already had about him being in school. I can remember one time I was watching about the serial killer, the clown, and he abducted little boys, right? John Wayne Gacy. And I literally was envisioning, and nothing could tell me that my son Triton wasn't in a car in Pittsburgh in a trunk of a car and he was being abducted. So at times you do have to watch. And I've learned ways where, because I enjoy it, I love it. I love true crime. I love everything about the psyche and psychology. And after I took that little break, I found different ways where I can still incorporate that in my life without becoming obsessed. So, how do you know when it's too much? One of the first signs is you're becoming overly paranoid and anxious about your own safety. Me, personally, I don't really feel that way about my own safety. I feel that it's so weird because even though I have anxiety, my anxiety often reflects on other people. So on my children primarily and my husband. The anxiety that I have about myself is more of a health anxiety. And if you missed that video, or you're not sure if you have health anxiety or not, you can find that here. So I don't really believe that people are going to come and steal me, or that I'm going to be murdered or anything like that. I think that it makes me more conscious of my surroundings. I always tell my psychologist, I'm like, I get good things out of true crime. But if you're constantly looking over your shoulder, or if you're like me and you're starting to project some of these things you're seeing on your children, or better yet, your adult children, then, that is a red flag. Or also, some people will feel emotionally numb or desensitized to violence. I've never felt that way. But it is important to recognize if these things are impacting your life. Is there a flip side? Can true crime help? As you heard me a couple minutes ago, I said I always tell Steve, my psychologist, that I learn things from true crime. And I don't know if I'm just saying that to kind of justify it or what, but I really do, because some nights I will be sitting and I'll be watching one, and it'll be, they tell these people's stories, and I love stories, and some of their stories are so sad and so bad, and it just, sometimes I lay there in bed and I'm like, thank you, God, for, my life, even though sometimes it seems really bad, it could be worse. So I try to find the positive in it. It can be a way to process your fears in a more controlled environment. When you see justice served or a mystery solved, it can give you a sense of empowerment or closure. Some people find that understanding the darker aspects of humanity helps them feel more in control of their lives. It's all about balance and understanding your personal limits. I tend to joke around and tell my husband, if I ever get sent to the hospital and they can't find out what's wrong with me from all these shows, I am going to know what to do. I'm going to tell them to look for arsenic. I'm going to tell them to look for this poison or that poison. And so I do tend to learn things from it. So it's not always a negative thing if you enjoy this type of content. How can we enjoy true crime without allowing it to affect our lives? And this was something, guys, from the time I was a little girl. Me and my cousin Matt, he was my age, and he was more like a brother to me, and he introduced me into, or maybe I introduced him, I think it was more him, but we have been watching horror movies our entire life. We would sneak when my grandmother would go to bed, if we were staying in her house, and she had like Spotlight or Showtime or something that we didn't have yet, and we would turn it down really low, and we were little kids like watching some crazy shit, right? That things I would have never let my children watch. But my kids, I kind of passed it on. Other than Xander, my two older ones, they love it. They're big Halloween people. They're big, my daughter especially, she's as bad as me. So one of the most important things is to set boundaries. And again, limit the amount of time that you spend watching and consuming this types of content, especially if you notice it's affecting your mood or your anxiety levels. I watch shows that I know don't affect me. So again, I'm not worried about my husband killing me. I'm not worried about someone stealing me off the street. I think because of these shows, I'm not terrified when I go like in public. I don't have any social anxiety or anything like that, but it has made me more aware of my surroundings. Certain things that I've seen on these shows will send a trigger to my mind that like, okay, this guy's, kind of creepy. Maybe you ought to get to your car quick, or park in a place that's well lit, or whatever. But you need to know that your triggers. And again, one of my triggers, like I said, I don't watch things about people who are getting terminal illnesses. I don't watch things that the main thing that really bothers me is I'm terrified of human trafficking. And I know, but it's a real thing, guys. It may not be as prevalent as it is in my mind, but I have a 23-year-old daughter, and she's out a lot by herself. And she's very talk to strangers girl, and she literally thinks it's 1968 and her ass is getting in a car to go to Woodstock, and that's just not how it is. And while I don't want to instill fear into her, it does cause me the ones about trafficking or abduction bother me, so I don't watch those. I tend to watch ones that I know I don't have a fear of. So understanding your own triggers is key. If you know that certain topics bother you, Like a violence against women or violence against children bothers me too. That there's a show called Why Women Kill, and some of the stuff, like back in like the early 1900s, these bitches that killed their kids, it's disgusting. And I tend not to like to watch those ones because it bothers me. I'm a mother and I don't understand how any mother could do such a thing. So it's your mental health and it is okay to protect it. Find another series that doesn't bother you as much, or turn off the TV altogether. That's what I do when it starts to bother me, because like I said, I'm not one who likes to watch other types of shows. So if you've been here before, you know that we're all about stories at Someplace Sunny. If you haven't already, please visit www.someplacesunny.shop and click on Submit Your Stories. Guys, your story can help so many others. I get so much positive feedback from those who maybe are afraid to share their stories, but they're reading others and they're finding something that they resonate with. While you're there, also check out the Someplace Sunny Foundation. It is our nonprofit. All sales from the site go to that foundation and is set up to help those suffering from mental health challenges. As always, I always have a Someplace Sunny design on, and it's kind of cool because we're getting into spooky season. And what's really cool is by the time this video drops, we are going to have the true crime and chill design out, and it's one of my favorites, guys. It's so cool, and I'm sure Justin's going to give you a little sneak peek of that. This one is taken by the sky. It's kind of like a little Stevie Nicks vibe, right? And it is a darker, more witchy themed design. Again, this is not available. This was last year's design, but if you continue to check the site, every Monday 2 new Someplace Spooky designs are being revealed, and there, I'll give you a little hint, there's one similar to this year's model that will be up. Okay, so I want to take a few minutes and just share my story. I know I've been sharing some stories through this whole video regarding my children, and I did a video, I think it was last week, and it was about how anxiety, when you have anxiety over adult children, and you can find that here if that's something that you're struggling with. So just a brief synopsis of it is, we went to the beach, my daughter and I. It was our first girls trip that we've ever taken. She's 23. And we went in May, and she met a person who was very nice. I met him twice. I hung out with him one night, and then we went to lunch the day before we left. And she had been talking to him and had developed this friendship with him over the summer. And he invited her to go to Georgia with him in July. And I tend to watch shows about, like a specific thing, like women who kill, or, there's multiple ones. There was an episode that I was watching that back end Justin's mother, she's Michelle, she loves these two, and she's my go-to. Whenever I'm done with one series, I'll say, Justin, ask your mom which one to watch. So she was telling me about this one, and it's really good. But it's kind of a different episode every night. So one night it might be about serial killers. The next night might be about husbands killing their wives. The next night it might be about abductions or whatever. So you don't know what's coming. And I had a lot of anxiety. I had her being trafficked. I had her being chloroformed. I had everything under the sun happening to her. It was awful. It was to the point where I legit could not differentiate the anxiety from reality, and it hadn't been that way in a very long time. And I was watching the show, and it came on about like abductions or something, and I immediately turned it off. So as we spoke about, it's very, very important to not, if you enjoy this type of content, to know your triggers and know what's going on in your life. And I switched it, and I just actually started watching it again. I just went back to it recently because I just couldn't do it that night. I had already had enough. And you know what? It's if you learn to do that, because this is the way I look at it. I've always loved this shit, like always, since I was a little girl, as long as I can remember. And I didn't develop anxiety until adulthood. And it's not fair. These mental health challenges, they steal enough from our lives. And I was not, after I had to stop watching it for about a year, I wanted to find a way that's what I enjoyed. I don't enjoy watching other stuff on TV. I love it. And I was not going to let health anxiety or any of this bullshit that I think in my head steal any more joy from me. It steals enough. So again, that seemed to help. And then actually she just went back last weekend and I was fine. I didn't watch that show. I did quit watching that again while she was gone, but it did help me by just withdrawing and knowing what I can and cannot watch. Can true crime affect your mental health? I would say absolutely. But guys, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I have found ways to balance it. And by setting boundaries, setting limits, and balancing your content, you can still enjoy what you love without having it take a toll on your well-being. So how do you guys, how do you balance it? How do you, are any of you able to watch it? Or tell us in the comments if you can't watch it at all, or if you have strategies that are helping you to balance your mental health with your love for true crime and horror. I would love to hear that. And please put that in the comments. If you found this content helpful, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to our channel. And most importantly, find your someplace sunny and take yourself there. It's truly where freedom and happiness reside.